My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we continue to share together from 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Paul is addressing issues raised by the Corinthians, as indicated by the opening phrase, "Now concerning the things of which you wrote." And the first proposition that some had raised was, it's good for a man not to touch a woman. And Paul has argued strongly that marriage is part of God's plan, and it should not be treated lightly. And so he has spoken strongly about a woman not leaving her husband, even if he's an unbeliever. But that raises an issue. Maybe the spouse will not put up with you being a believer, in which case your spouse may initiate a divorce, and the believer will accept that, not rush into it, but will accept that the unbeliever has chosen to depart. But in so doing, they are walking away from God's blessing on their own lives. But his advice to the unmarried and to the widows is it is good for them to remain even as I am, but if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry. In other words, there are two alternatives here. Both are good, and it's up to an individual to choose which one. But if the pressure is on for you to be married through your natural desires, then that is not wrong. There's no second-class action here. Both are good. The emphasis so far has been that if you are married, that you seek to maintain the marriage. And that is part of a principle that he outlined from verse 17. As God has distributed to each one, as the Lord has called each one, so let him walk. The Lord has placed us all in individual circumstances, and we are to walk in the path that the Lord has set for us. In this area there is no common path. So some people were slaves, and they will remain slaves as believers. Some people were freedmen. The slave is the Lord's freedman, and the free man is the Lord's slave. Similarly, you are raised a Jew, then by all means continue to live according to your Jewish customs. But you were born a Gentile, you don't have to adopt Jewish ways. What matters is whatever circumstances you're in, you follow God's commands. That is, be engaged in good works, loving one another, caring for one another. We have been purchased at a price. So we don't become slaves of men. Whatever we do it for the glory of God. But in general, let each one remain with God in the state in which he was called. Now, does that contradict his earlier statement about the unmarried and widows? We address this further from verse 25. Now concerning virgins, that is, those who are not yet married, I have no commandment from the Lord, yet I give judgment as one whom the Lord in his mercy has made trustworthy. I suppose, therefore, that this is good because of the present distress, that it is good for a man to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be loosed. Are you loosed from a wife? Do not seek a wife. But even if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, and I would spare you. So if we pause there and say, well, first of all, there is no blanket command. The Lord has not said marry or don't marry. We need to weigh it up in our present circumstances. One of the issues to weigh up is the current social and political situation. When you get married, then you take on responsibilities, and you can't walk away from them. Paul was very conscious that for the next 200 years the church would face great persecution. It would be particularly hard for those individuals who had wives and children, for the pressure would be on the whole family. The individual would not be free just to move away to a place where there was less stress because they had a family to care for. So be wise, think about the ramifications of the choice that you make. He goes on, but this I say, brethren, the time is short, so that from now on even those who have wives should be as those that had none, those who weep as though they did not weep, those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice, those who buy as though they did not possess, and those who use this world as not misusing it. For the form of this world is passing away. In this paragraph we find that we must maintain a focus of eternity, that the material things of this world have no permanence, but rather they are temporary, and he'll state that again solidly in 2 Corinthians. The time is short, the world is passing away, and there will be great stress upon the church. That is why he's saying, well, don't add to your stress unnecessarily by seeking a wife. Though there's nothing wrong with seeking a wife in principle, it does have implications on the circumstances and the pressures of your life. So he goes on, but I want you to be without care. He who is unmarried cares for the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he who is married cares about the things of the world, how he may please his wife. There is a difference between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares about the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she who is married cares about the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I say for your own profit, not that I may put a leash on you, but for what is proper, that you may serve the Lord without distraction. So, a second reason why you might not marry now is that your freedom to serve the Lord changes when you are married, because you are now bound to be in partnership with another person when you are married. You must provide for them within this world. You must please them. You live for them. They are one flesh. And so a completely different lifestyle. Ultimately, it is good if you can serve the Lord without distraction. There is a cost associated with serving the Lord, and that is that you do not please yourself. Jesus always did those things that pleased the Lord, and he ended up not getting married because he was focused on doing the Lord's work. In some circumstances, a husband and wife together make the team that does the Lord's work, as we'll see in the next chapter. A husband and wife together, unless both are absolutely committed to this task of serving the Lord, will be taken up with the things of this world. Paul is engaging in a discussion to help individuals make the right choice. But, verse 36, if any man thinks he is behaving improperly towards his virgin, if she is past the flower of youth, and thus it must be, let him do what he wishes. He does not sin. Let them marry. Nevertheless, he who stands steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, but has power over his own will, and has so determined in his heart that he will keep his virgin, does well. So then, he who gives her in marriage does well, and he who does not give her in marriage does better. A father is responsible for the care and provision of his daughter until she is married. He may not marry her off until she has passed the flower of her youth, that is, until she is fully matured. There's no child brides permitted till she has matured. If circumstances permit, and in negotiation with his daughter, he may continue to support her. He has to think about the needs of the young woman who he is responsible for, and he must do what is right for her. That may be that she get married, it may be that she has a desire to serve the Lord. He must take her needs into account, not just work to his own agenda. Again, there is the choice whether to arrange a marriage for her or not. Our Western society operates slightly differently in this area, with much less in the way of arranged marriages. But the question is still posed in many marriage ceremonies: who gives this woman to be married to this man? But the bottom line is that when a marriage does take place, a wife is bound by law as long as her husband lives. But if her husband dies, she is at liberty to be married to whom she wishes, only in the Lord. But she is happier if she remains as she is, according to my judgment. And I think I also have the Spirit of God. And so marriage is a profound institution from God, which should not be entered into lightly.